The Treasure of the Magi, a study of modern Zoroastrianism. Book 1, Chapter 1. Zoroaster and the Parsis. I praise the good Mazdayastian religion, which is the religion given by God to Zoroaster. That's part of the Parsi Creed. Now, what does Mazdayastian mean? It means they have no secular celebrations, no secular songs, no all praise, all worship, all celebrations, all songs, hymns, whatever. They're for God. So nationalism and all that stuff is just not, birthday celebrations, all sorts of anniversary celebrations, weddings are even for God. A few explanatory pages seems to be needed before we proceed to details, since it is found and experienced that the subject of this book is very little known. Zoroaster, who in these pages will be called by his own name, Zarathustra, rather than by its Greco-Roman form, is dimly identified as a storied Eastern sage who taught fire worship and dualism. Of course, the Persians, there's no evidence of fire worship among them. But that's what people said since the Greeks, who, they have a fire in their temple, that must be their god. Yeah. The cold mountain people, in the cold mountains, yes, somebody who stands around the fire praying the fire must be their god. That's ridiculous. That is the division of the world between Ormazd, Oromazda, and Ahriman, and Gramenyu, the good and the evil powers, equal and co-eternal. Well, that's Zoroastrianism, but it wasn't that Satan was like the evil god. That's not really what they were saying. This may as well have been stated here, since the student will not find either fire worship or dualism among the tenets of the Parsis. As expounded below, the name of the prophet Zoroaster will be associated by some with the romance, by Marion Crawford, by more with the ravings of a dangerous lunatic named Nietzsche, who impudently fathered on Zarathustra doctrines which have been the undoing of the country from which they came, and would perhaps have poisoned the other lands, had not the war revealed them in their true light. To the mythical Zoroaster of Crawford and of Nietzsche may be added the equally mythical figure of the later Parsi tradition, some of whose features reappear in Greek and Roman writers. It will not, therefore, surprise the reader of the only English translation of the sacred books of the Parsis to find that one of the learned translators regarded the sage himself as a myth and nothing more. Well, a myth serves a purpose, thank you very much, but even hundreds of years after whom the Christians consider to be the incarnation of God, Zoroaster's influence had, as far as we can see, exceeded all other prophetic figures in terms of, actual some sort of following. Now, if the warlike behaviors of the Christians and the persecutory behaviors of the Christians are used as an example, that definitely overshadowed at some point, but the good thoughts, the good words, the good deeds, the personal priesthood, the monotheism, and some other stuff, its influence on the Persian race was, and outside the Persian race is sort of undeniable. In this book, the founder of the religion of the Parsis, a most conspicuous, though numerically small community in India, and especially Bombay, will be treated on the evidence as a real person. His date is given by the tradition of the medieval Persia as 660 to 583 BCE, and actually that's a date of the Achaemenid reworking of the tradition, but this is probably 4 or 5 centuries too late. 1700, if the Avestan is any indication, the 1700 to 2000 BCE is a more probable date. But the Parsi date that puts it back in the age of Taurus or something. There's reason to think that that's possible. Although I think 2000 or something like that is probably 4,000 years ago is probably more likely. And the prophet is rather to be regarded as the earliest religious teacher whose name is known to us among the Aryan-speaking peoples. Well, I mean, that I guess a Westerner would accept as a prophet, but traditionally his activity is associated with cities in ancient Media, Maru, and Raga, now Merv and Ray, south of the Caspian. Rai, is it Ray or Rai? Here again, tradition is probably wrong. A tradition only traceable many centuries after its subject's death is not calculated to command much respect. I mean, how can this guy be Christian and had that sort of idea? He is more likely to have preached in his country, far away to the east, in Balkh or Sistan. The sacred books of the Parsis is called the Avesta, or incorrectly, the Zend Avesta. It occupies 3 volumes of the sacred books of the East, translated by the late James Dermestester and Professor L. H. Mills. The translation needs considerable checking by the knowledge accumulated since it was made more than 30 years ago, and the doctrine of Zarathustra's mythical character and the very late date of the hymns assigned to him have been repudiated by almost every scholar except its author, a most brilliant Orientalist who died before he could read the verdict of science upon his unlucky paradox. It will be seen that the English student of the Avesta suffers from a serious